Well, guys, guess what today is? Garage door day. Man, I'm excited. It was so fun to install these garage doors. It really changes the look and the feel of the whole building, I feel like. So, really happy with these. These are a Midland garage door, and I installed them myself, and I wanted to show you how you can do it too. Hopefully, even if you have a different brand and you're looking to see how to install a garage door, hopefully this will give you some good ideas. It's a long video, but it's chock full of tips and tricks. So, let's get started.
Alright guys, so this is the episode where I'm going to do garage doors. I am doing Midland brand garage doors, and I was just going to show you this with one completely done. Now this is going to change a little bit once I end up doing the steel on the sidewalls and on the ceiling. That's what I'm planning to do in here, as far as I know, is the white steel. Excuse my mess, boys got bicycles everywhere. So this has been almost a year since I started digging on the very first part of it, digging the water line in. So it's been a long ongoing project, so we've kind of partially moved in, as you can see. There's just stuff everywhere. But there's no organization, but one of the main goals that I want to do is to get this enclosed to the weather. I have one garage door left to do, so I wanted to go over it, kind of the steps of how I did it. So if you're interested in how I got to this point in the garage build, go back and watch the playlist. I'll try to link that somewhere here for you guys. You can watch the playlist of how I got to this point. Like I said, it's been kind of a long, drawn-out process, but I'm trying to document it as much as I can. The only thing I wasn't able to document a whole lot was the steel siding on the build, because it was through the winter and it was really hit or miss. So what I wanted to go over here is one of the first things that you want to do is figure out how to trim this out. I'll show you what I did here. I have a local steel roofing company that can bend whatever I want. So I decided that I wanted to get a piece that covers all this, because I knew the track was going to sit here going up. So this is a double 2x6 right here. And so I wanted to bend it far enough for that, and then it comes over and it caps this, and it goes underneath the J channel here. I would say it probably goes about 1.5 inches, and I might have shown that somewhere earlier in a video, I can't remember for sure, but then the J channel caps that. So I wanted to show that because then when it finishes off, see, this here is what it's going to look like. The track's going to sit here, and then I just nailed it here because the steel siding, when it comes here, is going to cover this up. I'm going to plan to do like a J channel against that. And that's going to determine some of the things that I do going forward with like these sensors and stuff like that. I'm going to have to figure that out when I do the steel siding. But for now, it's going to be a while that it's going to sit uninsulated probably. So everything is going to get mounted temporarily, like the buttons and everything. So then I wanted to show you up here on the header. Now this is kind of unique to my situation because this is a 10x10, the opening. And the longest that the steel roofing company can make any kind of material is 10 foot 2 inches, which wasn't long enough to go completely on that. So that's why I had to piece it. So I pieced it right there. I didn't want to piece it with a really short piece. So I ended up doing an 8-foot piece, I think, and a 2-foot piece. And then you might wonder what this weird little corner is. Well, this is how it came out with the garage door trim as well. Since it's 10 foot, that garage door trim only comes 1 inch into that opening right there. And so I had to do something to cover that little corner up, which I figure once the track goes on there, it's going to look good. Because, see here, you hardly notice it, and then once the J channel is going to cover that up, then it's pretty much going to completely disappear, so you won't even see that little corner. Now, I didn't fasten this metal yet on the bottom. See, on the top I nailed it, but that's going to get covered by the steel siding in here. So I'm going to get some kind of low profile, either white screw, panhead screws, to fasten that bottom. Right now it hasn't interfered, but I still want to fasten it. So it's just kind of flapping there right now. But I wanted to show you what it looks like when it's all done. You don't notice that there's anything weird about it. So that's just kind of how to prep for the opening. In my situation, that's how I prep for the opening, and I wanted to show you guys that. So one of the main things when doing a garage door spring and stuff is you want to make sure dead center that you have a good support block. I have a stud right there in the middle, and I know exactly where it is. It's exactly center on the door. And that's one reason also that I wanted to leave that loose. If I have to double check, I can, so I can get in under that metal. But also insulating that header. I knew I wasn't going to be running any wires through there, so I decided I'm going to go ahead and insulate that. And I had enough rigid foam left over from doing my floor and stuff that I just ripped all that and put it in there. So I got that all insulated in there, and then I got it covered up with this metal because I wanted to be able to fasten everything and not have to take the springs apart later when I do my siding. And also, siding can just kind of interfere. You want to have a nice flat surface above the garage door, at least for a few inches, probably a foot. So I figured since it's 2 feet, I'm just going to do the whole thing. and then I can cover that up. So now that I've gotten a really long intro to kind of explain, catch you up to speed about prepping openings and stuff, now I can go ahead and start the garage door. One of the first things I like to do is get these side rails prepped. I think that's what you call these, ones that go up on the side. So these ones are different than probably what you would normally see because, and I'll show you why, because I did the weather stripping differently. It's kind of a cool system. I'm excited to show you this. It's more of a hidden weather seal, and I think Midland might be the only one that offers that, but I'm not sure. If you have a different garage door company, then they might offer a similar thing, but you'll want to check with them if you're interested in this. And I'll show you a little bit what that looks like. So one of the first things I like to do is get these out here. I have a socket set up, and it's a 7/16, but it might be different on your side. But I'll show you this on an existing garage door. See how this gets moved out because of the thickness of the door? They just kind of set it wherever they think when you get it, but at least I can look at this one and see kind of what it's like. So right now my bolt's kind of in the center on the bottom, and it's pretty close to center on the top. And these things don't move very easily, so you have to loosen them pretty good. So now that this is loosened, I can move it out to the middle. I'm just going to snug it up. Come to the top. I learned through trial and error that you got to loosen it pretty good. Now that's pretty close to center. I think that's close enough for what I'm doing for now. These middle ones just kind of follow suit once you got the two ends in place. Now that I got that one, I'm going to prep the next one. The next thing, I was going to show you this weather seal that I was talking about. See how it's kind of a little bit more hidden when it's closed like this? Instead of almost 99% of other weather strips are right out here. And they buckle and warp and stuff, so I really like this system. So what it does is it clips onto this flat part of the track, and when you fasten on here, it pinches it on there and holds it tight. So now in my case, where the concrete guys dipped the concrete a little bit right here because of this doorway, they went a little too far with it. But so see how this goes past? Because the angled track sits here where it's flat, right here on the floor. And then this is up a little bit. But so I have to run this past a little, and sometimes it's trial and error, because I want it to seal tight against the concrete here to keep these guys out. Mostly mice. I don't really care about bugs, but mice. I don't want it to go too tall. I want it to go about 1.5 inches past the top of the opening, because then the top seal, which I'll show you here on this existing door, the top seal gets screwed onto the top panel, and then it caps that there. So that way they get sealed nice and tight when they're together. So that's it's kind of nice having one garage door done so I can reference back to it, but I'll try to explain the process a little bit. So like for example, if my opening's 10 foot, I want to go 10 foot one at least. If you go too far, it doesn't seal properly, the top piece doesn't. So I found out just to go a little bit above the top of the opening. I would say 1 inch, 1.5 inches. Now since my opening's 10 foot, I'm going to go 10 foot 1.5, and I'm just going to make a little mark somewhere where I can see it. Maybe on here. I already marked this one, but I'm going to transfer it back there. And then this is the stuff right here, this weather seal. This is what it looks like. For these side pieces, it comes in a roll like this. This end's a little bit messed up from being in packaging. I'm sure it'll straighten out in the sun, but I'm going to use off of this end as much as I can. Now, when it clips on this track here, you have to think about which way's inside and which way's out. So yeah, this ribbed part right here, this rougher part, in my case, that's the inside. So I have to start up here by this mark and see how it separates, just like this. So that just slips on here. I wanted to start it with my mark because I got to go from the top down. It's a little bit unruly, but if you go one end to the other, you can get it to behave pretty good. It's kind of like unrolling pecs or something. It likes to get curled up, just like wire and stuff. See what I was talking about here? These concrete guys, they went too far with this. I had marked out on the forms where I wanted them, but they tapered this all the way back, which it's okay. But the track's going to sit here where it's flat, and then on this last 2 inches, it's going to go down some. So I think I'm going to start with 1/2 inch, because I can always trim it. I'm going to start with that stuff sticking past 1/2 inch. So this stuff cuts with just a scissors. It cut a little wrong since I was doing that, but I like to have the outside flap is what matters the most. This right here. Now this stuff grips so well on this track that if it is too far up or down, you have to pretty much take the whole thing loose. It won't just slide. It really grips on there. So yeah, this time I'm going to separate it. Maybe this is easier to do without gloves. I just like wearing gloves for this stuff because the metal's a little bit oily and my hands get a little messed up. I'm going to trim this because it was cut at an angle from last time. Might cut easier with snips, but scissors usually do pretty good. Now, same as that, I'm going to leave it about a 1/2 inch, but it might need a little fine tuning. Now, you know how I made that mark up here? This is close enough now. I can cut that. Now that that's on there, it's going to be a little trial and error of getting it to fit to the floor, to seal off properly. You'll have to read your directions on your garage door, how you want to do it for sure. This is just to give you some ideas of how I do it. I do it a little bit differently in some aspects than what they say. But what I start with is finding out what the exact length of my panel is, which is 10'2" in my case. So I know that my opening is exactly 10 foot. So I know that my panel is going to stick 1 inch past on either side of the garage door. Now, thankfully, I have this one I can reference to, which makes it easier. But if you're starting out with a fresh door, of course, if you're watching this video, chances are you are, then I would say you want to at least start with a 1/2 inch room on either side of where this track is. So say if your door is 10'2", then you want to go 10'3" overall with where the inside of your tracks are. On this side and over here. So give yourself a good 1/2 inch, and it can vary a little bit because these tracks here are slotted where you put the screw in, so you can adjust it. And worst case, if you have to, you can take it off loose once you're done, once you got your panels stacked up, and you can just put a new screw hole in if you need to. It'll all be covered up. But that's kind of how I figure out where to put this track. So in my case, since I already have one here, I can just measure because I know they're exactly the same. And I need to be 1.75 inches from here to this edge. Since this is a nice flat edge, it gives me something to reference off of. So that's how it works out in my case. So I measured and I made my mark 1.75 inches right here. Top and bottom, I did that both sides. And you can level this later to make sure it's level. This will just give you a reference point for checking this part. So this, of course, is the left side upright. Now I'm going to set this right here on that mark. Top and bottom, I apologize, the sun is kind of in my face here. And then I want to see what this looks like. Boy, look at that. That's perfect. That rubber flap. I just kind of made it the same as what the other sides were. So I think that's going to work great just like it is. I don't care if it's a little bit long. I don't want it super short, but it's just rubber, so it can flex a little bit. So now I'm going to lean this here. I'll check this side because this one could be different. So then I'm going to set it up there. Yes, this one is different. It's actually resting on this now. That shows you how little that stuff moves. It grips really good. But I have a pretty good gap here. Probably at least 1/4 inch. I can just trim 1/4 inch off of this. I'm going to use my snips this time and make short work of it. I guess if in doubt, run it long because it's easier to trim it than it is to take everything loose but like a foot of it to slide it down. Now with all garage doors, you would get a box of hardware, all these goodies, owner's manual. Now this is Midland, like I said, in particular. So make sure to read through your owner's manual. Don't just take what I say because your situation might be a little bit different than mine is. So I'm just going to show you kind of the process so you can get a visual. Sometimes visuals help, with what you're doing. Now you don't have to do anything that I'm doing at the moment, but I'm just going to kind of move a little bit out of my way here. What I'm mostly interested in right now is getting all the hardware packs out. I like having a nice table to work on. I got a sheet of plywood set up here, sawhorses, and it makes for a really nice bench to work off of. Now, this we'll get to as we go, all this miscellaneous stuff. Main thing right now that I want is I want these ones right here for installing the upright track. See all these guys? Now, what's nice about a table here too is you can just have all your stuff spread out as long as you don't have little boys, which I have little boys, and a little girl. But right now, they're off to the lake having fun. That way I have a nice quiet spot before doing this garage door for you guys, just to show you a little bit. So, all right, we'll get to all this stuff later as we go along. It's important stuff, but we're going to cover it all as we go here. While I'm installing this track, you can see how many holes it has in it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So there's 6 lags in each one. And I'm going to go ahead and install all those because, like I said, you can easily remove them a little bit if you have to. And in this case, I'm actually going to put an extension in here. You'll probably see why soon. It's a Black & Decker, but all my good stuff is at work. So I got to do what I got to do sometimes, you know what I'm saying? So, now, sometimes I would have my boys help me and hold all this stuff for me if need be. But right now, they're off having fun at the lake. So, we are going to do this. I'm going to spread out my bolts here. And then I like having a drill bit. As you can see, I want it to be smaller than the lag itself, than the threads, because I want it to be able to grab really well in there. So mostly, I just have one that is about the size, you kind of want it the size of the shank, if that makes sense. I think that's what it's called, but not the threads. So I always start at the bottom, of course. Then I'm going to go right on my mark, and like I said, you can do some adjusting later if you need to. Make sure your weather seal is all on there. And I want to get it with the mark up high and down low. Then I try to pretty much center my hole if I can, because that way I have a little adjustability. I got to drill through that metal, just makes it a lot easier. This is the reason I have the extension on here, because this track is so deep. There, so I'm on my mark down here, pretty much. Now I also have a level here, and I want to double check that this is level, that my marks agree. So I'm going to put one here in this. No, that's not going to go anywhere. Of course, there's always an airplane flying around. Not sure if you can see him. Now, still saying pretty level, but that can all be fine tweaked a little bit later. And yeah, you can see I'm really close to my mark. Right there's my mark. Now, some people like to add these in later, I think. I like to do them all while I'm at it, because it's pretty easy to take them loose. But you can add them later if you think there's a chance that you're just really not going to do well with your placement. Now we're going to go over to the other side and do the same. I got the bottom panel. See how it has the weather seal on the bottom? That's what you want for the bottom panel. So I'm going to go ahead and unpack this. Now that we got that peeled off, we want to carefully flip this over. I made sure that this plywood was nice and clean, because I don't want to scratch my nice door. And you could peel that off last if you want. But now, we got some different stuff going on here. Now, we got this bottom thing to put on. They just need to bend apart. So usually everything is labeled left and right, but if not, you can figure this out pretty good. Now, the bottom panel requires more prep than some things, just because of what goes on. One thing that it requires is the cables. And all garage doors are quite similar, I think, as to how this process works, but you'll have to refer to your owner manual to be sure. Now, there's different hardware bags. Red means caution usually, like this stuff is under tension. So this is the one that we want, the one for this. Now, the first thing we're going to pick out, we need to have a pin. This pin and the cotter key pin, whatever you call that. I think that's what you call that, cotter pin. Kind of need 2 needle nose pliers for this. See, this pin goes on, and once you put this on, then it traps it so you can't get it back out. So this has to go on the inside. It has to go through the cable loop. So once it's in there, it's all flush. See that? Okay, so this is where you need 2 pliers. One to hold the head of the pin, and the other to bend these. There. It's so that pin can never pop off. Now you can set that there. And we'll do the same for this side. We need some of these red ones here, these red screws. Now you can see some of these are different. See how these have self-tapping tips on them? These kind of do, but not really. So these are spots where there's already holes in them, these thicker ones. You can see where this goes because it has a double here and then these all line up. These bottom rollers, I think I want to drill these and get these set. I'm going to have to take these back off. See how these bottom rollers go like this? And then this is where you need the pre-drilled ones or the other special screws. So this I can go ahead and put in for now. But since I did put the upright rails both in first, I'm going to need to pop these back off. But I like placing them here on the table because they're easier to do. This is where I differ a little bit from the owner's manual. They say to put one rail up, and then you can put the rollers in this side. Then you can bring the panels in at an angle and get them situated in there, and then put it over, and then put that one in. What I like to do, I like to put the panel up square, not put the rollers in, not put the hinge on and the rollers in until it's sitting there. That's just how I like to do it. I don't know why, but that process seems to work well for me. This is why I have to put this on, get it all pre-drilled, and then pull it back off, because when I sit it up there, I'm going to have the roller off or I can't get it in there. So now, after all that, now I grab 4 rollers for this first one. I'm going to set all that there. 2 rollers on either side. Now that we got this all prepped, this panel is ready to go. So I'm going to grab the panel, walk it over here, watch the cables. Then I like to set the panel here. Then of course these cables, have to make sure that they're okay. Kind of want to center it in the opening to start with. Now the pins for the cables have to go in front of this, which you'll find out when you're doing the rollers. Yep, I'm getting that situated. Now the next thing, before we do anything more, is they want to see that this first panel is level. If anything, this end could come up just a fuzz, but I think it's close enough for this. I think it's so when you put it all together and it stacks, so you want it to stack level, and it'll kind of self-adjust as it goes up and down. But get that first panel sitting nice and level. Over there I had to put like a little shim under it, 3/16 or so. That was the only one. The others were good. This one looks good. So it's important that that sits level. So all these hinges are labeled. There's a bunch of number 1s because the first row gets number 1s and then all the middles from there get number 1s. So there's lots of number 1s. But you want to make sure you get hinges that say number 1 for the first row. And then got lots of these screws. First step, this is what I like to do. Put the roller in right now and then put the hinge. So only 2 in each one. Now that that's good, now the cable can be fished through here later, but the cable does have to go up above behind all these. But I found sometimes once you get this bottom one started, it's best just to leave that cable alone and then fish it through later. Otherwise it's in your way the whole time. Now I'm going to put this top one in. And you could figure out those holes later, but I really like to do them ahead of time. I think it just makes it easier. Makes it easier now when you're trying to get this door in. Now the reason everything is red on this is because it tells you that there's spring tension on this one because the cable is attached to this. It means danger, danger, danger. Now while I'm at it, I'm going to do this one. Now that you got that one set, that is the most time-consuming one, because on the next one, you can get it over here and get it peeled off, and you can put this middle hinge on the top every time if you want, but then I leave all the others off, have them setting here just like before. I just stack the panel, clip the roller in, screw it, clip the roller in, screw it, put the middle hinge in and screw it. Okay, you probably see me slipping gloves on and off a lot just because of peeling film and all that. I got this one peeled, this is number 2, and then what I want to do for the middle, I always want to find number 1 hinge. I can put that on here. Then they usually stack them in order. Like number 2, number 2. See that? So now I just need number 2 and a roller, number 2 and a roller. instead of taking my drill back and forth, I think I'll just put this hinge on over here as well. So now comes the easy part. The easiest part of the whole door. Stacking these things up, these lower sections. This is really the easiest part of the whole door. Now, so you just stack it on there, line the edge up. You can come over here to confirm. Looks beautiful. Before I even fasten that, I focus on getting the top one on. Now you'll notice on this first one, it just has one option, but on the second hinge, you always want to go in the lower one, the furthest one out. See how there's a hole that's further out? If you just did this, it'd be like a number one kind of. But the door, it has to do with how the door goes around the radius as it goes up. You'll have to refer to your owner's manual to be sure. See, now as soon as I get that in, I can let go. This is the only one where they put this screw in a weird spot. I could go here, but I feel like it's going to hold better towards the top. So this number 2, just because of the position it is the hardest one. Now, since this is stacked here, it just goes together, boomity bam. I could go over and do the other side, but this one's holding it, so I'm going to go do the center. While I'm here, I'm going to do the next center. Might see me digging in my pocket for screws a lot. That's because I have them in my back pocket. I could put them in my handy little pouch that I have. Then I'd have to locate it. So you see how easy it is to clip these rollers in, put the hinge on as you're here? This is the way that I like to do it. So to each their own, you can do what the owner's manual says. You can improvise a little if you feel adventurous, just as long as you do it safely. This is where you need to think about windows. So for me, I decided that I want my windows centered in the door because I wanted natural daylight. I wasn't worried about privacy and people looking into my garage to steal stuff. So if you're concerned about privacy, I would probably go on the 4th panel up. This one's also a little different because I have 5 panels. It's a 10-foot tall door. If it was an 8-foot tall door, then you'd have to decide as well. So as far as looks go, I think it looks good from the outside to have it in the center with this style door, this style windows and stuff. That's just my personal opinion. But what I had to do on the first door is I had to actually stack it up there. I ended up stacking all the panels. My wife and I looked at it. We looked at pictures. I was like, you know what? I want to be able to look out here and see the boys playing in the driveway, things like that, which, yeah, boys will be boys. Had an extra cabinet at work, a cut-off one, so they're playing with it, pretending it's a house. And since it's not snowing, like it seems to be 7 months out of the year here, then they can play outside. So it's actually a beautiful day out. It's in the first part of June, beautiful day. But what I wanted to show you here is, yeah, think about window placement, because now's the time. I'm going to put my window in, but I went through that whole thing with the first door we did in the very back. Now I did this, and I really like it. I like that it's eye level. I like that I can have natural daylight. I like that I can see in and out. It just was too closed in with the few windows I have in this garage for me to have it up one more panel. So think through that thought process. Now's the time. If you have to put them up there temporarily, you know, you can easily remove some screws, remove the rollers. I have 2 windows in mind. All depends on the style you're doing. I really like this black from Midland. I like the style that we chose, and I really like the windows. I saved about $5,000 by installing these 3 garage doors by myself, by the way. That's the price I got. I got 3 prices. For these 3 doors, they're solidly insulated. They're the R18, I think. They're from North Dakota, the Midland, so they know how to make doors for cold weather. And I need cold weather doors here in Montana, so I needed really good insulated doors. And these are the best from everything that I've read. So all that to say, you have to be a dealer to get these. But I knew somebody that ordered them for me. He marked them up a little for his time. I still saved $5,000 by installing these myself, which I think is well worth it in the overall price of things. So if you're at all a little bit handy, you can do this, you know. And I'll get into the openers later. This is random, but these are Summer. They're a German brand, super quiet. I really like them, how they are, and I'll show you that in a future video. But yeah, so now's the time. Think about windows. Let's go. Panel here. These things are heavy. They're a lot heavier than a regular panel. So I'm glad also for that reason to not have it any higher, although I did it for when we were trying to decide which way we wanted it. I lifted it plenty of times. So now, same thing, just going to repeat the process of what we did last time and line it up. I got all my rollers over here ahead of time that I didn't want to show in the video this time. And it's looking great. Put this one in first since I can hold it good. Okay, so I think by now you totally get the process of how these stack up, so I'm just going to go ahead and keep stacking. On this fourth panel is I am going to put this hinge on ahead of time now. And I did want to mention something as well. There is usually a panel that's specifically for the top. See how it has that extra plate on there for the opener to fasten to? So the rest of the process that I was going to show you that I do different, this panel I can still reach to stack it from the ground. Now the difference is, I got a vice grip here that's going to be ready, and you could do this really on all the panels if you wanted to make it hands-free. But now that's going to hold it while I go ahead and do the process like I did on all the others, just of getting the rollers in. Okay, a couple things I want to talk about on this top section. So this is the top section laying here, and you can tell it's the top section by that. They actually usually have a sticker on them somewhere. Top section. You can see there. So this gets a stiffener bar here. I can't remember quite what it's called, but it stiffens up this top panel, keeps it from flexing. Sometimes depending on the size of your door, there might be multiple of those throughout your panel, like even on the midsection or something. So the way it came out, this gets completely flush on my situation with the top right here. And then you can see how I have one hole here that lines up for this. So this is going to be the top hinge. See how it's very adjustable because it's starting to go around the radius of the track. So I'm going to leave this off for now because I'm going to do it up there like everything else. And actually I have to get these top rails put in. You can see the placement of it on this one. I have to get this installed before I can do that. So I'm going to do the same thing where I put this top panel up over there and then clamp it with 2 vice grips. But I just wanted to kind of show you as far as placement of this goes. So you could put that right there, but the holes don't quite work out. It's adjustable, so it does have a little bit of flexibility where it goes. But I wanted to show you that, where those go, and also where this top stiffener bar goes. So now I'm ready to put this up into place. I'm going to do the same, get it up there, kind of set a ladder up close to one end, but kind of between the middle and one end, so I can get it tipped up. Thankfully, these are lighter than the window ones. And then I'm going to clamp it with a vice grip on either end and hold it for now. That way I can get going on this upper stuff. Okay, so you see how I got that top panel up there. I got vice grip holding that on either side, so it's really nice and secure because I don't want to do anything more till I get this upper track done. But now the next step that I do is I look for how my reveal is here. I want to go for roughly 3/8 to 1/2 inch, which I'm pretty close there. I might tap it over just a little, but then on this side, my gap ended up being a little bigger. So I need to move that over a little bit because I want to kind of snug it up. That's where the nut driver with the extension that I had will come in really handy. But now you can just take that loose a little bit and move it over and adjust it. If it has to go too far, you can completely remove the screw. And as long as you have something in there holding it, it'll be fine. But actually, that side there will hold this pretty well because that's all secure. And these panels are locked together. It would literally have to bring the whole thing like this for that to fall out. So it is pretty secure to completely remove this, like loosen it if you have to move it. If you have to go like 1/4 inch or more. But so that's the next step, is to get that finalized where it goes. I'll kind of show you what this one looks like. You can see there. That's probably about a 3/8 all the way. You don't want it too tight, but you don't want it too close either. And they probably specify in the manual kind of what you want. This one's more like about a 1/2 inch. And so somewhere 1/2 inch, 3/8 has worked out really good for what I need. So now the next thing they say in the manual, to put a rope that's about the right height. And I put it back so it's a couple feet from the end. The track is 12 feet, I think, and I wanted that at 10 feet. So I got these little screws here. I don't know if you remember those. They go in the track. They have a low profile head so they don't interfere with the rollers. And I'm going to stick it through that rope. I got the ladder there just in case, but then go up and fasten that end. I might just have to loosely fasten it, but I'll see. So I'll show you that process. This could be the most intimidating part, this over the head stuff, but with a little planning, it's really not too bad. They're not super heavy even. So now I'm going to try to stick this end through the rope. That'll hold that. And then just walk this one up the ladder. Now that's just going to sit. You have to make sure that this part is on the outside. And then those little bolts that you got here, I think these are going to have to just go in temporarily. Separate bag, those little ones. But now you want to open this bag that has all these red ones in it. Because for this you're going to need one bolt and one red nut. And this is temporary as well. Should have really taken this along with that hardware for the last one. So you want to just leave these ones loose so this can slide, but then this actually goes through here, this top one, and that will hold that temporarily as well. All this stuff is just hand tight for now. See, because this is tipped down too far, so I can't fasten any of this. So then the next step is to go get the other end addressed. So now I'm going to try to show this best I can, but I need something to reference off of, so I always do this off the outside wall first. So I measure off the outside wall, and I am 28, if you can see that. Then you have to see where that correlates with this. So that correlates right in here, which comes along here on the track, so you got to have a reference point. So not the brace, but the actual track, it's 28. Off of that. So that's going to be important when we get back here, and you can reference that in a couple places, because now we can reference off the outside wall over there to know where to put that. I'll try to show this off an existing one. So since I measured off the outside wall, now see, I need to make a brace back here out of this slotted angle bracket. You can get this at Lowe's or Home Depot or any hardware store usually has it. Tractor Supply, any of those. You know how it was 28 right to the outside edge of that track? Now going up, I know that my piece needs to be at 28 as well, because I put it from there over. Actually, so in my case, I needed an 18-inch angle bracket, then I need an 18-inch angle that way, and a 12-inch on the top. So that's what I needed to make mine, and that makes it nice and strong, because you're bracing it. This is stuff that you have to supply yourself. I have some pre-cut here. I was going to show you. So yeah, I got two 12 inches, and then I have some 18s here. So I need two 18s and a 12 for each one. So the one that gets screwed up to the ceiling, and you can play around with how it goes. In my case, see, I have some different lags here I think I'm going to use. And then of course I have to have a socket that fits it. And you have to pre-drill usually for these. And then I need some of these. And then I use a 3/8 by 1 inch bolt. That's plenty for this. Depends on the size of your L bracket, but mine has perfect for 3/8. And then I have some locking nuts on some of these. Sometimes I don't, but sometimes I do. And then I have the washers, so I'm going to go ahead and do washers on all these. So I'm going to take all that stuff with me the best I can. I don't know how well you're going to be able to see up over my head. I'm just kind of taking a guess at the camera angle. Now I know from the inside of the outside wall here, I'm 28. So I'm going to make a mark here at 28. So I want this to end up, I'm going to hold this up for reference because this one's going to go in this hole like this, and I want it to be 28 to the outside of this piece right here. See how there's a little discrepancy? So I want 28 to there, because that's going to go down here and fasten into this, and that's what we're referencing off of, is this side. So I actually want this piece right here. So once the bolt is in there, that's going to hold it, and you can put a bolt in there if you need to reference it. I think what I'm going to do to give myself a little room is I'm going to fasten it one back from the end, because I know I'm going to have bolts right here in the ends going this way. So just to give myself a little more room for my wrench here, I'm going to move in one for my lag bolts up into the truss. Now this might be hard to show. I don't have a nut driver, so I got to use a socket and a bit. Now, this worked out perfect for my truss to be really close to the end right here. It's just a fuzz back from it, but it's close enough that I can do it. Might not always work that way when you're trying to do it, but you just got to kind of figure that out. If you have a finished ceiling, then you can, hopefully you could do some cross pieces this way if you had to with this stuff and then drop down. But a lot of garage door guys like using this stuff because it's just super nice to use. Okay, to not make this video too long, I'm going to get this together and then show it to you. You got to check the height here, which mine is about 15 and a half, 3/4. It's usually about 16 to the top. So you can see there, I'm at 15 and a half right there. And as long as this is setting down on, that should be pretty close. So then you want to have that really pretty close as far as up and down over there. This now that it's together. So you see I'm pretty good with my markup there. And these things have a little bit of slop in them, so you can do a little adjusting. But what I was going to say is, I kind of figured out what my angle is. You know, you can play around with the length of things and the angle. You want to try to go about a 45 degree if you can with this. That's the perfect brace. But what really matters now that you're done, even though this was your reference, down here is what you really care about, off the outside wall. And we're at 28, right there, right where we wanted to be. So, now that I know that, I can tighten this last bolt. Now I can take this loose, and then I'm going to do the same on this side over here, but what I'm going to reference now is I'm going to do the same with the rope over here. Actually, there's a floor over here, so I can't use the rope, so I'm going to use this tall ladder and do it that way. But now that I know how this all goes, I might do this first. And so I can measure between the two upright rails over there. Well, actually, from over there now, I can hook onto this, and I can measure and get my spacing correct, and then I can even go ahead and install this bracket over there, at least loosely, screw it into the ceiling, get the bolts in temporarily, and then that will be all ready to hang that other one. So that's why I do the sidewall first, because I have something solid to reference off of, and then do it over here. Now sometimes when you get the door up, you might have to do a little adjusting because everything might not be perfectly square or something, your walls and all that stuff. So once you get it up the first time, then you can see if it's too tight, are the rollers binding, or is it too much room? If it's too much room, then you can take this whole thing loose a little, bring it over, just like you did on the sidewalls there. You can adjust that gap by this. And this will be really solid once I fasten this last bolt. It's amazing how strong these are. Okay, I wanted to show you this end over here. Now that we have that end secured over there, it can still move a little bit. So I wanted to get this lined up. And so I got this positioned, and I actually had to adjust this bottom a little bit to get these to line up. You want to get this connection to line up really well so it doesn't bump with the rollers. And then I got this bolt in right here, so that holds that up there, and that kind of determined where this position. And you can still do some adjusting here now with this. But in order to do that, I took this vice grip off because that's holding it over there on that end. Then on this end, took the vice grip off, and now I'm going to put this roller on before I move over to that side. Okay, now for this top roller, you want to loosen these guys so that this can slide however you need it to. And then this roller can go in here. They always have spots for extra screws, but they don't give you extra screws. So, all right, now you can kind of pretty much tell where that door needs to sit. You don't want it like super tight, but you want it kind of pushing out against your thing. It's pretty much tight. And that can all be adjusted a little bit later if you need to. Now you want to go ahead and tighten these up. That will hold it so you can do whatever you need to for getting that one ready. To put the top seal on, this just sits on top of the panel. You'll see right where it goes, and then you just put a screw just at an angle like this. And I like to hang it over about 1/4 or 3/8. They give it about 1 inch long, so it's about 1/2 inch on each side, but I like to trim it just a little because I don't want it to interfere with the track in any way. And so this has a double seal right here. Pretty cool. And also they want to screw every foot, so I mark it here on the table because it's easier to do it up there. Lesson learned. So I have 2 ladders here now. And make sure to be safe when you're up on the ladder. Sometimes I do a little higher than most people might feel comfortable, just because I'm used to being up on a ladder. Now, you see how that just sets right on top of there? And then I hang it out over about a 3/8. And it's really floppy when you're first putting it on here. We just got to kind of work it as you go. Just put those regular screws in it. I put one right here close to the edge. And if you have somebody helping, it might be a little easier. But you figure out how to do things when you work alone. There. So that's how that goes. These things that we broke apart from the beginning, so they're listed R and L, right and left. So these go up on the top there to hold the shafts on the end. So we need 2 bolts and a lag per each one. So let's go install those next. Okay, so the way that this goes is just like this. So usually I get these bolts started in here first. Nut goes on the other side. Just kind of match what you did there. Got the same socket. It's a 9/16, same as what you've had before. So I usually snug these up. As long as I know this is pretty much in position, then this will hold it even if I put the lag in. Now you want to make this straight up and down best you can. Then put this lag in. This gets one of the red lags so they know it's danger. There you go, straight up and down. Now we'll do that on the other side as well. Both sides of these installed. Now we got to measure down from the top to see what the center is. So see how it's almost 12, 11 7/8 about. I'm going to check both sides, and then that's going to determine where that center piece goes to support the rod, because you want the rod as straight as possible. The center support for this. So what I did is I measured both ways and I found center. Remember how I said that I left this loose so I could look under there? And I'll fasten this down later. So I reassured myself that I found the stud that's right there. And then what I did is I found the same height. So this is the center of the rod right here. And this hole right here is right even with the center. So then I made a mark out here where center is. So as close as I can, I want to, even though this support should technically be right in the middle, I only have that stud right there. I don't have like a whole solid stud pack, which I should probably have. But since I got this stud, I'm going to center these holes. It's close enough. And I want that to be right in the center of all the studs. Now you want to get that as straight up and down as you can. Put the rest of the anchors in. Okay, so now I'm ready to get the springs ready to go. And they're on here just a little snug so they don't move around during shipping. So I loosened them. You only have to remove one. Now the way they have it is these are color coded. Black goes on the right. See how that spring has black on it? That one has red on the other end. These are color coordinated as well. See how that's red? And this is black. So that goes over here. Now there's a couple things. We want to have the screws facing in. So this goes on this end. See how this is red, this is red? So that's all on the left. Now you want to check your book and see if yours is similar. But now there's a center support bearing that goes in that bracket up there that we put in. And it goes just like this. So you got to slide that on in the middle. Then this spring goes back on. And then this one goes on. Now, we're ready to take this thing up and put it in position. Let's try to balance this the best we can. Now the trick is, get one end in. We go get that other end in. Now, get it kind of centered. Then this bearing support goes right in here. Then these springs come together. And we got bolts and nuts for that. you want to get those bolts secured really good. Center this on either side so you have the same amount sticking out. Then the next thing, you remember this cable that has been down here in the way the whole time? Feed it behind every single one of these wheels. All the way up. It's really pretty easy. The reason for that being, we're ready to get this guy set up here. Now you want to make sure that cable isn't caught on anything, that it is full length here, and then, I don't know if you can see that, but you're going to get that cable started in there. You can see it there. So it has to go in and around this, then you have to get it started on the first row here. And then you want to make it nice and tight. You don't want to go crazy on the tightness, but you want to get it so it's nice and snug. And all the way against here, all the way against this outside rod. Now you can hand tighten these, and then a little adjustable wrench. Now they say not to over tighten these so they damage the rod, but you want to make sure they don't slip. So you just want to snug them up good, maybe give them a little bit extra so they dig in, but not so it squashes the rod pretty hard. So with all this stuff, don't just go by what I'm doing. Also check your installation manual just to verify that everything is good. Now, we want to take a vice grip. You don't want it too tight so that it damages a thing. But now this is when it's crucial that you make this nice and tight. Now see that? So you got some tension on it, got it clamped against the header up here. Okay, now same thing on this side. And bring your cable all the way up to the outside here. You want to get it started in here. Now you want to make sure all the tension is out of there. It's not caught in anything. Tight against that side. Tighten it up. Now when you're done, I like to put another vice grip over here. I think they just say to put it on one side, but I kind of like the idea of having one on either side. And you don't want it to grip terribly tight, but you want it to have a good bite. I like to do, not that it's going to lift the door up that much, but I like to just make sure that this door is not going to go anywhere while I'm winding it. Since I have another vice grip, I like to clamp one there. That'll prevent it from going up at all. Tags that came with this, and it tells you how many turns. It says the size of the door, how many turns to wind it. So I need to do 10.5 turns. That was on these springs. So that's what I got to do next. I have these chunks of rebar. They're about 2 feet long. You can use these. These are a little bit smaller than what they have room for. These are 3/8. I think you can do 1/2 inch. These do work great. I would recommend trying to get something to fit as tight as you can, but you still want some room to get it out of there. They say to use winding bars. I've only ever seen rebar. I don't know where to get real winding bars. So just be careful. This is the most dangerous part of the whole thing. I kind of enjoy it. So you have to wind, on these ones, you have to wind it up. And this line here, you can count how many turns, but I also like to keep track as I'm going. So what you do, it has these spots every quarter. So I know that where my bolts are right here is straight up and down. So I know that when I'm done, I need to end with a 1/2 turn. I need to end down here because I need to go 10.5 turns. So I usually count as I go, like half. Okay, so there's 1 turn. And it's barely holding anything. But now what you can do, if you need a brake, you can have that hold it straight down. That'll lean against there and that will hold it. Then you just got to take the tension off next time to get that out and keep going. So that's 1 turn. Now I got to wind this 10.5 times. It's going to get harder as you go. Just make sure that you stay clear with your head and stuff as you're doing this, because in case something would happen and it would let loose, you know, you don't want to get hurt, especially your head. So make sure to keep your head clear. So make sure to read your instruction manual about this. But this is definitely the most dangerous part of the whole operation. 2, it winds really easy to start with. Now this is a little bit left-handed, but 2 1/4, 2 1/2, 2 3/4. As soon as you let the tension off with 1, okay, there's 3. One side, then you can keep going with the next one. You have to kind of take the tension off before you can pull the next one out. That's 3.5. I'm going to take a little break. You can see there's 4 winds on the spring, but it's also good to keep track. Don't let any distractions happen while you're doing this. 10.5. It's resting there. I'm taking a little break. And then what you can do, since this is loose, now you want to get a little tension off. I want it straight up and down because that's half. Then you can tighten these by hand. Now they say to tighten the one up front first, for whatever reason, and then the one in the back. Now it's the same. You don't want to go too hard to kink the pipe or anything, but you want to make sure that it's nice and tight because we don't want that to slip. Now we got to do the same to the other side. This one's a little different where it's straight up and down for being straight to start out with. So now my half turn is going to be straight up, but that happens sometimes. You want to keep really close track when you're doing this, because if you're at all mistaken on your turns, you could either have underwound it or overwound it, and those marks are pretty accurate, but I want to try to make sure to have you focus on just turning this, no distractions, count it out as you go, because you'd be surprised with doing 10 turns how distracted you can get. Speaking from experience, I've had to get to like 7 or 8, and then I'm like, wait, is it 7? Is it 8? And I got to unwind the whole thing, and you can't just let it loose. You got to unwind it a quarter at a time because it's wound tight, you know. So anyway, so count it out as you go. So now I'm going to keep winding. Got these wound and tightened that the vice grips are away from the wall a little. That's okay because you at least kept your tension there where it belonged while you were rotating it. Now remove your clamps all around, and then the door shouldn't go anywhere. The springs are just taking the weight off of it. But now I'm going to tie a rope on here. I don't want one on here once I have an opener. But now we've got to test it out. I want the rope to be able to put it back down. Nice. You guys see that? Now, look at your reveal coming all the way down there. That's about 3/8 to a half. That's perfect. I like that. This side, yeah, it gets a little bit bigger back here. So I might adjust it about 1/4 inch that way. And it does have the room in the roller there. You can see it's got about a 1/2 inch gap. So it's okay to have a little extra room, but I don't want it pulling much to the right or left. But yeah, with the way the door looks, this side looks perfect. So now I'm just going to fine tune it, and I might be able to get that with having just loosening the angled brace there and just getting the slack out of the bolt. I might be able to get that much. If I can't quite, I'm going to put the door down and move it out 1/4 inch and do it again. But that is how you install that garage door, and hopefully your garage door is quite a bit similar. Now I am going to do a future video about installing the opener like this, the summer opener. That will probably be out next. So now that that's up, I can go through and finish putting all my lags in there that are missing because I can get to them now. And then just check, put the door up and down a few times and make sure that it's tight enough against the weather strip. If it's not sealing up tight against the weather strip, then loosen these bolts here and adjust it in tighter. And if it rubs too much, then you can adjust them out a little bit. And that's how you get that. So yeah, you can see from this door how that's all sealed off. You can't really even see that top one in there, but it's nice and sealed off. That one I might have to adjust out a little bit yet, but it seals off nice. And I love that weather strip, how that hides like that. But if for some reason you guys end up doing a Midland garage door, tell them Paul from Smart Easy DIY sent you and that they should sponsor me. Anyway, okay guys, I hope you enjoyed this.
Alright guys, well I hope you enjoyed this video. Be on the lookout for the next video, which is going to be installing these garage door openers right here. These are a summer brand, they're German made, they're very nice and quiet, which I really wanted for upstairs and all that. So be on the lookout for that video. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel, and thanks for watching guys.